Hello and welcome to the tutorial series for Republic Commando modding. This series will teach you everything about the game in terms of modding, etc. So, I'm using the Steam version here, but you can use any other version like GOG or retail disc version. And what you need to have is the official 1.0 update installed, which ships the editor, the Unreal ED, as well as the multiplayer map hanger. If you don't know if you got the official patch installed, you can simply check the main, like the root folder for the game for this file update 1_00. By default, the GOG and Steam version install or come or provide the files automatically. If you use the retail disk version, you likely need to manually install it. The patch will be in the video description. So yeah, I'm using the Steam version, but this applies. So this all the information apply to any game version. This is the root folder for the game. Nothing really special or interesting. All those files and the install folder are for the launch and the installer itself, so it's like not important at all. You can skip those or ignore them, delete them, whatever. What matters is the game data folder, which hosts all those all the necessary files for the game. They are all conveniently sorted by their actual usage. So you got your animations folder, which consists or contains all those skeletal meshes and the animations associated to it. The help folder, just the icon and the logo. Karma data's physics-related files. The maps folder contain all the necessary maps, movies, all those movies. Music contains all those soundtracks for the game in OGG format. If you want to listen to them, you likely need to install the audio codec extension for the media player, Windows Media Player, or just use the VLC player. The out folder by default doesn't exist. It's just like a temporary folder created for debugging stuff. Prefabs are, you could say in modern terms, if you compare to Unreal Engine 4 or 5, some sort of blueprints, those containers or archives, or they contain certain scripts, scripted actions and some small actors which you can easily place in your map file. Properties contain all those settings or properties for the classes in this game. Since by default, or you don't have the default properties block at the end of your class compared to other Unreal Engine games, they are all stored in separate files. A save folder contains all those, all your saves, and as well as the system and Unreal ED config file. Sounds contain all those voice lines and sound effects for the game, all stored inside a Unreal Audio container. Static meshes contains all the props in the game. Let's skip over to textures. Textures, as the name applies, contains all those textures in a texture container. The system scalar folder is unused. Those binaries are actually just like the others, but without SSE or SSE code, or compiled without SSE code. Back in the days, not every CPU had the SSE extension, so those binaries were provided without SSE compilation. But those are unused today. The system folder contains all the other files, mostly binaries and translation files. If you scroll down, you just like select a file, then hit S and W on your keyboard to get down to the two most used binaries, the SW Republic Commander exe for the game and the Unreal ED, which is the editor for the game. Before starting, I recommend installing Leon's fix. Link will be in the video description. Just head over to releases and download the zip file. The zip file contains some updated binaries, mostly fixes the bump mapping and as well as some issues related to the editor, which will be very convenient. So in order to install them, just select all those files and copy or extract them to the system folder, and there you go. Yeah, as I said, the game uses the Unreal Engine 2.5. If you're familiar with it, you will have a head start. Otherwise, yeah, it's like a mid 2000s game engine from Epic. So let's start. So just start the Unreal ED. Wait for it to load up. Okay, by default it won't look just like that. I just set the win. Wait 1 second. So by default it will look like 1 second view. It will look like that. You can change the viewport arrangement by going to view, viewports, configure, and then yeah, adjusting those. I recommend the third option because like you're most likely using a widescreen monitor, and that way the 3D viewport will be like have the biggest viewport, so it's very convenient. The content window here over here contains all those like easy access game assets. For now, we will just ignore it. So once you open the Unreal ED, the camera movement will be a little bit weird if you're not familiar with it. By default, holding left mouse button moves the camera forward, backwards, and it will rotate to left or right. Holding the right mouse button would just rotate it in place in all directions. And holding both mouse buttons will move the camera up, down, and sideways. So if you're not familiar with it, you just have to get used to it. But it's not the worst thing in the world. Alright, so the camera movement out of the way. Before we start, the editor or the game itself is very messy. It tends to crash very often, especially in the editor, so I recommend whenever you do something big in the editor, or after some time, like 5 minutes, I recommend just saving your progress, because the editor can crash in the stupidest way. And then, like, if you haven't saved your map for like the past half an hour, you will be very upset about it. Trust me, it happened to me many times, and it's just frustrating. Okay, the content window. If you closed it previously, you can open it again by pressing the pawn icon on top. It will say active class browser. Okay, the content browser. This is where you browse the game assets of this game, as well as doing other stuff like importing or exporting assets. By default, the content browser is straightforward. You have your textures, you have your the scripting classes, which uses Unreal script. You got your animations with the pawns, where you can inspect the inspect the skeletal meshes for the animation. You got your static meshes. The camera movement is the same as in like previously said. Left mouse button is moving forward and backwards, and the right mouse button is for the rotation. Prefabs, yeah, essentially blueprints, but will be covered in another video in the future. Sounds is playing the sounds in game. Yeah, and the particle system, which contains all those particles. Okay, so, and I recommend having some sort of like this setup if like it's like the most suitable for widescreen. Since you have a relatively large 3D viewport and content window on the right side. Okay, just a quick explanation on the viewport. So this is the 3D viewport. This is sort of like how it will look like in game. On the right side, we'll have 3 additional viewports, all in 2D. This one is the top one, just saying here on the corner, top one. So just like a 2D viewport from the top, from the front, and from this side. It is useful if you want to align certain stuff, directly to the floor or to walls or whatever. Just precision work. Okay, so with all those basic stuff out of the way, in the second part we will, create a basic map, and I will cover some basic stuff to get like the first map done. See ya.